So welcome to another weekly Forex forecast. We start as usual on the DXY on the weekly time frame. We were discussing this level here for quite some time and said when we get a breakout, the doors are open for the DXY to reach the previous highs at around 115. It seems we are now in this area. We get quite a nice bullish breakout week last week. However, we have to be a bit careful. It could still be a trap and price can as fast retrace the whole candle again into the first actually full trading week in 2025. There's also a lot of news coming up next week, so we have to be a bit careful. There is NFP next Friday and quite a lot of CPI data during the week as well. So going down to the 4-hour time frame, we can see that price actually was stalling here on this previous structure or range high over the Christmas days and was accumulating more volume, and then finally towards the end of the week broke out to the upside, which then gave us this overall bullish breakout week. So I would like to see for price to accumulate a little bit more volume in this area before I then really look for more US dollar long plays. Ideally, we get a structure into this previous liquidity area here, just basically above the top of the structure. So if we get a deliberate like 1, 2, 3 structure into this low, then we know the breakout is confirmed. On the other hand, if we break impulsively below and we see some bearish continuation below inside the structure, again the higher time frame structure, then we know we have to change our bias. We can also see that on the other dollar related pairs. It would make sense for them from a technical point of view to go in either direction. However, if price does not get back down to this level here, we still have a small liquidity area here. So if we get more of a flat bullish continuation pattern in this area with the 1, 2, 3, then we know that would also confirm a potential long play in the US dollar pairs. Moving on to Euro US dollar. On the weekly time frame, we do see that price was tapping into these areas here to the left, which we identified for quite some time. So it would make sense for price to turn around at this point. However, with the positioning of the DXY, it could go in either direction. Going down to the 4-hour time frame, we do see we have an area of interest here, which we have to take care of it. Price broke below this area here to the left, then tapped into this area of interest we identified before and ended the week on a wick. So we have some conflicting price action here. This is more a bullish price action towards the end of the week. We are here on the 4-hour time frame. So as long as we are trading below this level, I'm more looking for short plays. So ideally we get a bearish structure retesting this area here, and then I would happily look for a short. Alternatively, we see this area here, which is just sitting above. This is a smaller liquidity area. If price is stepping into this area, turning around and giving me some bear flag continuation, I'm still looking for a short. However, if then price would start impulsively turn around and start to form a bullish continuation in this area, then we know also DXY might turn around and it was more of a trap then, and then we are looking for US dollar short plays in that instance. So going to New Zealand dollar, US dollar, very similar. We see here we don't have anything to worry here to the left, so it's not turning around from any significant area of interest, not like Euro US dollar, which was tapping into a bit a more weighted area of interest. So we still have some room to go to finish the last run into this low, so we are still looking for a continuation short. Going down to the 1-hour time frame, in terms of a pattern separation, just the technical pattern separation standpoint, is like we have here a bearish continuation which started to sell off without momentum. It was stalling a bit here. We get this small liquidity point here. It's a V-shape sell-off, and then we had the sell-off leading into stalling of price around here. So on the lower time frame, we can see we have here a very small liquidity area. So as long as we are trading below actually this overall volume accumulation. I'm still looking for a continuation short. Ideally, we get a proper bear flag structure into this liquidity point with the 1, 2, 3, and then I would happily entertain a short in this area. US dollar Canadian on the weekly time frame. We have this on watch for quite some time. We do actually look for long plays since we broke out of this overall higher time frame range here. We got actually two trades in this run here to the upside, and we are still looking for price to finish the run into this value area here higher up. We do see price is starting to stall a bit and going down to the daily, or actually even better to the 4 hour. We can see we are in a range which could be a potential volume accumulation for the last leg up, but this range is actually quite big, so that's something like 0.9%, so around 130 pips. So if we get clean price action on the lower time frame, like in this case tapping into this high here and then showing me some bearish continuation on a lower time frame, I'm happy to enter a short trade just to play this range here to this liquidity area here. This is enough room to manage a trade, and if then price breaks below, then we are already in for quite a massive trade, potential trade. We still have here a small gap to close to this potential base. We have to be careful in this area. So my overall sentiment would still be more leaning towards a long, but that could be then to the middle or the end of the week. So if we can get, ideally we get a short into a long, right? That would be absolutely perfect. So if we then get on the higher time frame, like at least a 4 hour reversal candlestick pattern in this area, I would definitely entertain entering a long again in this area. US dollar yen. On the weekly time frame, we are also still looking for price to reach the previous highs here at around 162, and we can see that price is starting to stall. It had multiple options or multiple chances to sell off, and it did not commit to the downside. So we were looking at the few areas which were interesting. So we were looking initially at this area here, and then we get some reaction of price here, sold off, but it failed to connect. Instead, it came up, formed a new high, and is now actually stalling just through this previous small high here, and we can see it's accumulating more volume. So it gives us a quite clear range to play with. So in general, we are looking for long plays. So if price is then closing this small gap here and giving me a proper, at least a 4 hour candlestick reversal pattern, I would definitely entertain a long play. However, if price suddenly breaks below out of this overall range and giving me some bear flag continuation below this area, I would change my bias and look for shorts, but that would then also be in line with the DXY selling off again. US dollar Swiss francs is very, very similar. We have this overall bigger structure here with two gaps. We have a gap to the low, we have a gap to the high to fill. So we are still in a momentum run to the upside, and we had enough volume accumulation in the middle of the run. So if you just look at the proportions, it would make sense for price to at least finish the run into this previous area of interest and closing the gap here before we then see some bigger potential reversal or reaction of price. We do see, however, that the last week was ending on a wick, so therefore we have to be a bit careful, but the overall price is still just above this area of interest we identified last week already, and as long as we are trading above and we get some bullish continuation, we are looking for a long continuation play. So ideally we have here some quite a few potential bases. So as long as if we get some kind of bull flag structure around this area here with the clear candlestick reversal, here as well, we will stick to a higher time frame, a more weighted time frame. I will look only for 4 hour plays in that late in the run and on the size of the structure. So if we get a 4-hour reversal pattern within this area, then I'm happily entering a long play in this area. Australian dollar, Swiss francs, that was a losing trade for me last week. We start on the weekly time frame. We were looking for price to continue to the downside. We had an undecided week the week before actually, but from an overall positioning point of view, it would still make sense for price to sell off into this low here, filling this week, actually filling the week here and closing the gap, and with that filling both weeks actually on a higher time frame before we then turn around, which would then support an overall risk off sentiment. And looking on the 4-hour time frame, this was a 4-hour play. The overall structure here, we had quite a nice bearish continuation structure which was positioned fairly well for a short continuation, which I entered here as a 4-hour play, a limit play actually, and then got taken out quite fast. So it seems like it was not enough volume here, so it just looks like a volume grab a little bit higher up, and we do have some area of interest here to the left, and it seems price starting to react in this area. So I'm still, my bias is to the short, but I have to see and incorporate the technical signs. So as long as we are trading above this high in this area, I'm not interested in any short. So I would like to see for price to break back into the basically overall bigger structure and then giving me some form of bear flag continuation, ideally retesting this area to then enter a short continuation. However, if I see deliberate bullish price action, so if this is a base and price is starting to form a proper bull flag continuation, then of course I would entertain a long and change my bias, but it has to be very deliberate price action, and again on a more weighted time frame such as the 4-hour time frame. New Zealand dollar Canadian, that's the second trade for me from last week. This was a winning trade. On the weekly time frame, we see we were looking at this for actually quite some time. We were looking for price to finish the run into this value area here to the left. However, we do see we have finished the run into the start of the structure, right? The last 1, 2, 3 structure here, and it would make sense for price to turn around in this area. So it does not have to do much more. However, the overall bias for me is still leaning towards a continuation short, and the price action is a bit conflicting. On the daily time frame, we do see we have a reversal pattern. Quite a strong one. We did not end up on a big wick. However, from the positioning and the sequence, the short play would still be okay. Just have a short look on the trade I took here. We had this liquidity point, we had a small gap, we had a proper base here, price came up and showed some nice weighted time frame. That's a 4-hour play reversal candlestick pattern, and I entered the trade here, closed it manually here because I knew I was not on the computer and could not manage it properly. It was still a 2-to-1, which is fair enough, but I left at least another 2, roughly around 2 on the table, but yeah, it is what it is, doesn't matter. As long, I'm going here to the 1-hour time frame for a bit clearer view. As long as we are trading outside the structure here, I'm not entertaining any short. So I'd like to see a clear structure going to the 15-minute shortly to see what we have. Yes, actually we do have a small liquidity point here. So that would be a nice base for either direction. So if we get deliberate price action into this liquidity point in form of a 1, 2, 3 structure, then we have a bullish structure that would confirm the overall daily sentiment with this reversal pattern, and we would enter along in this area, which would still make sense in the overall higher time frame. However, if price breaks below this liquidity point and showing some bearish continuation, preferably back testing this level here, then we know we are still in for a short to finish the run into the higher time frame value area. Looking into Canadian dollar yen, that's actually quite an interesting one on the weekly time frame. We are still looking for price to finish the run into this liquidity area we identified a few weeks ago already here to the left. That's the start, if I'm not wrong. here on the 4-hour time frame, yeah, this was the start of the final sell-off before we started to form some form of more complex structure. And we are now looking for price to still finish this leg here. We do see that we are stalling in this area, so it's neither buying nor selling pressure at the moment. In the bigger time frame, we are still looking for the structure to finish, so I'm leaning more towards a long, and price had multiple chances to sell off and failed to sell off. Going down to the 1-hour time frame, we can see we have quite a strong range, quite a strong support within the range, and we can also see we had just on Friday a reversal pattern here, and price is now stalling. So for someone who is up or during Asia session, Canadian dollar yen could be played during Asia session, which is then quite fair in terms of the spreads. So right now that could be a lower time frame play. I most likely will not entertain this trade because I'm not that comfortable on a 15-minute time frame, but technically that would make sense. So we have a small base here, and if price can finish a deliberate 1-2-3 structure here on the 15-minute time frame, that would be enough to enter in this area, and the stop could be protected outside the structure and still be enough room to just manage the trade into the range, right? And if it then finishes the run for the overall structure, that would be an amazing trade. However, yeah, I will decide then going into London session on Monday. Euro US dollar, Euro New Zealand dollar is also prime position. We have this on watch for quite some time. Euro New Zealand dollar and Euro Australian dollar is more or less the same. Australian dollar has an expanding structure, and New Zealand dollar has an ascending wedge basically. So they are positioned prime for a potential sell-off. However, again, you see here we ended the week on a wick, so we have to be a bit careful, and we still have some room to go into the higher time frame value area here on top. So going down to the 1-hour time frame, so let me clean that up a bit. We do have a very small liquidity area here, and we have a bit erratic price action, so that is conflicting price action. I'd like to see some very deliberate move into this liquidity area, a turnaround candlestick pattern followed by some form of lower time frame bear flag continuation, then I would entertain a short in this area. But when we look at the bigger picture, and we are still in an overall momentum run to the upside and have some more room to go, it could also make sense for price to form some bigger, more complex structure in this area, and then giving us some form of a bullish continuation in this area to then finish the next bigger move to the upside. But to be fair, if we accumulate so much volume in this area, it's very unlikely for price to stop here on this value area, and I'm not sure if that makes sense in the overall picture. That really has to be quite a strong risk-off sentiment into Q1. So therefore I'm undecided, and I'm looking for very clear price action before I enter a trade. But the positioning is definitely worth keeping an eye on. On the other hand, if we just start to sell off quite aggressively early next week, then it doesn't really matter. We just miss out on the first part here. But if we see a deliberate, more aggressive momentum to the downside and then some form of bear flag continuation in this area, that would be enough to entertain a short trade. And then pound New Zealand dollar on the weekly time frame, very similar prime position for a potential sell-off. We closed the gap here into this liquidity area here to the left for actually the third week now, but we are now turning around, and we saw that before we had an inside week here and then an engulfing bearish week. So it looks more like we turn around in sentiment, which from the higher time frame positioning would make sense, and there's a lot of room to the downside. Going to the 4-hour time frame, we see we were range bound. So we had a range here. We have this range. price failed to tap into the previous high again and then started to sell off fairly aggressive, and is now actually finishing outside this structure here, and is forming already on the 4-hour time frame a very nice bear flag continuation pattern. And you can see here we still have this liquidity point here to the left, and it would make sense for price to form a 1, 2, 3 into this area. So for the more risk averse people, that would already be a limit play from a technical point of view. So that could be a breakout play here already, but it would be something like around 100 plus pip stop loss, and then with the potential of a 2.5 trade just into this liquidity point. It's not really the trade I'd like to take. I see the structure, but I don't really want to take pound New Zealand dollar during Asia session with a lot of wider spreads and kind of erratic price action. So if I get if price is tickling up one more time and then retesting the top end of this range here in form of a 4-hour reversal candlestick pattern, then yes, I'm willing to take a trade here in this area for a continuation short. And if I miss out on this trade here just into this liquidity point, I don't really care, because on the higher time frame, as long as we are trading above this area here, that means we are just outside structure, slightly through the last high, we are still in a territory where a bullish continuation would make sense as well. But yeah, that could be very similar to US dollar, Canadian dollar, a sell into a potential long, but I'd like to see very, very clean price action before I entertain either way. So yeah, that's it. That's my watch list for next week. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.